Several people asked me for some practical examples of holiness. One person actually came up to me and said how impossible it was to be holy in this evil and wicked world. So I thought I would spend another Sunday on holiness and perhaps give you some examples and some objections. There are three specific areas which holiness can be visible or be shot down. The first is our desires. The second is our free time. And the third is our response to stress. Now you may say, oh, but there's this other area, or there's that, or this, or that. In my looking around for things, these are three of the most prominent areas that people struggle with. The first is holiness and our desires. If you turn on your TV and you see the news, you might get the impression that we are in a bit of an economic difficulty. This started some time ago, over a year ago, when major banks started failing. Remember that? And then the housing market went down and more banks failed. And Alan Greenspan, the head of the Federal Reserve under George Bush, was asked what he thought about this whole economic debacle that we're going through. And he said, why do smart people act so stupid? Okay? He could not get his mind around the idea that someone would sacrifice their company, their family, their neighborhood, just to make a buck. What he didn't get, what he doesn't get to this day, it seems, because he's still talking, is that everybody has a self-interest. There is something that I like to do. Some things, I will eat the food I want to eat. I will do the activities that I want. If it makes me feel good, if I feel that it is profitable. For example, in this economic problem that we're in, there were people, and the government estimates that there were actually 11 who made all this happen, people who had people come to them, or they figured out that if they sell this here and buy this here and move this over here and rename this over here, that they would make, over a period of 5 years, over $500 million. Now, what they did was not illegal. In fact, some of them claimed that the government encouraged them to do it. But in many ways, in every way, what was done was not ethical. Because by them getting $500 million, some people would lose their jobs. Some people would lose their houses. Some businesses would go out of business. And some neighborhoods would become so devastated that crime would become rampant. And it is believed that some people looked at these consequences and said, these people over here that I don't know are going to lose their job. These businesses that I never shop at are going to go out of business. But I'm going to make $500 million. I'm going to roll the dice and go for it. And the truth is, hundreds of thousands of people, in fact, it's estimated that 2.2 million people have lost their jobs because of this. The 350,000 houses have gone into foreclosure or been lost. That right now we're at 221 private, independent banks have gone out of business. The local neighborhood bank is a thing of the past. And crime in certain areas is up 30% because we can't afford police, can't afford fire, can't afford anything to keep us safe. And so what these people did, perfectly legal, that's why none of them is in jail, because there was no law against it. But on the subject of holiness, we wouldn't call precisely what was done the most holy of acts, because it was unethical, because it was immoral, because it didn't put, as Christ always did, other people ahead of them. A holy person would say, I can earn $10 more an hour, since money seems to be the biggest motivator for unholy actions these days. But if these 5 people over here will have to lose their jobs for me to get that raise, I will say, if I am being righteous and holy, no thank you, I do not want the raise, because I would rather, in the larger scheme of things, have these people keep their jobs, have these people keep their houses, have these businesses stay in business, than for me to personally enrich myself. The sad thing about our world is that everyone naturally acts in their own self-interest. Without Jesus Christ, you take any person and ask them what they want to do, what they're going to do, how they're going to spend their money, how they're going to spend their time, and they will act in a way that promotes themselves, that makes themselves more comfortable, that makes themselves more happy. Holy people, on the other hand, act in God's interests. I didn't say God's self-interest or God's best interest, because God only has one interest, and that's to glorify Himself and His Son. If, however, you are the type who follows your own self-interest, the result will always be greed and selfishness. If you talk with people and you talk about their self-interest, people might say, yes, well, I want to promote my own self-interest. But if you say you want to be selfish, selfish is still, fortunately, a bad word. Nobody's going to say, hi, I'm selfish. But people might say, hi, I take care of myself. And we go, oh, well, that's a good thing, being number one. What they're really saying is selfishness, and the more opportunities we have, the better you are at this, the more greedy and selfish you will be, until you end up destroying the lives of other people so that you can promote yourself. The godly result is holiness. Of holiness is kindness and self-control. If I am living a holy life, I will control my urges. I will control my desires. I will control myself. Try to look at the bigger picture, which is God's point of view, and try to do things to promote the will of God, which is kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, the fruit of the Spirit. If you want to look at the other extreme, that is not Alan Greenspan, has to be Mother Teresa. She is no longer with us. She is in heaven with Jesus Christ now, because she dedicated her life to the saving of the unsavable, to the glory of God. Her order takes a vow of poverty. They don't own anything but that little head thing she has and the clothes she's wearing and a Bible. They're allowed to own a Bible. And you say, boy, that's a boring lifestyle. But what they do it for two reasons. One, Jesus didn't own anything, so they want to be like Jesus. And two, they feel material wealth is a distraction. And it truly is a distraction to holiness. Why be holy when you can do all this other stuff, which brings us to holiness and free time? We live in a country, and you have the opportunity to have a lot of free time. We are considered a leisure class. Okay? You have opportunities right after church to basically do whatever you want. You have free time. If you're in the military, if you're in prison, you don't have those options. But as free Americans, we have choices to make, and the question is, what do you think about when you don't have to think about anything? And what do you do when you don't have to do anything? there is probably, even though you may consider yourself busy, there is probably several hours a week in which you don't have to, under legal obligation, to do anything. You can actually choose what to do. Which brings us to one of the most unholy things that anybody can ever say, and that is, I'm bored. Okay? If you say, I'm bored, you are saying to God, I know that you have given me stuff to do. I know that you have put me right here in this place. I know that you have done these various things for me, but I don't want it. I want something more exciting. So God, I'm bored. And when you say out loud, at least, I'm bored, God's not the one who's going to hear it first. Satan's